It was supposed to be the kind of weekend you remember for simple reasons. 4 friends in their early 30s, a battered aluminum canoe, northern Maine in late August, when the air cools fast after sunset and the smell of pine sits heavy over the water. The Allagash Wilderness Waterway is not a campground with neighbors and streetlights. It is miles of dark forest stitched together by cold lakes and slow rivers. When night comes, it comes completely. Stars gather in the thousands. Sound carries. A loon can call from half a mile away and still feel close. On August 20th, 1976, Jack Weiner, his twin brother Jim, and their friends Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz cooked fish over a small campfire beside Eagle Lake. They were sore and happy and a little restless. Charlie was the one who broke the quiet. "One more run," he said, grinning. "Let's fish by lantern." The idea was simple. Set the Coleman in the bow so insects and bait fish would rise to the surface. Cast where the glow pooled and wait for a strike. A strange plan, sure, but the kind that feels fun when the woods are dark and the lake is glass. They pushed off. The canoe slid into black water like a knife slipping into velvet. The lantern's glow formed a golden circle around them and left the rest of the lake erased. Paddles dipped and rose. Water ticked off the blades. The forest stood like a wall, a single mass with no edges. The men settled into an easy rhythm and let the canoe drift. That was when Jim noticed a light above the tree line. At first, it looked like a star that someone had rubbed with a fingertip until it smeared. Too bright, too steady. He pointed. The others turned. The light moved, not the slow drift of a satellite or the blink of a plane, but a smooth glide as if it were aware of them. It stopped. It hung over the trees and grew brighter, washing the crowns with pale white. Chuck frowned. "That's not a plane," he said. Charlie, being Charlie, flicked the flashlight toward it as if to joke with the night. The response was immediate. The light froze, as if surprised. Then it began to descend, slowly, deliberately. The men could see shape now. No wings, no tail, no strobe. A sphere, or something close to it, 80 feet across by their guess, glowing with an even light that had no source. The water around the canoe brightened. The men could see their breath even though the air wasn't that cold. A faint vibration entered the night. Not a sound exactly, but a pressure, like standing near heavy machinery behind a wall. "Go," Charlie said, voice tight. He dug his paddle deep and pulled. Jack and Jim and Chuck joined him, the canoe slewing as they fought to keep it straight. The light stayed with them, never rushing, never falling back. It simply kept pace, watching. The shoreline crept closer, the black suggestion of rocks, the darker blot of trees. Their arms burned, the lantern guttered. The vibration seemed to fill the inside of their heads. And then everything went away. No panic, no splash, no impact, just a hole in time. The next moment they were on land. The canoe rested above the waterline, pulled up by hands none of them remembered using. The lantern still burned, half a tank gone. The air felt colder. The light in the sky was gone. They stood there with the uncanny sense of waking from anesthesia, alert and blank. Jack checked his watch. After midnight. They had left camp around 9. 3 hours had fallen out of the world. They did not talk about it. Men raised not to embarrass themselves rarely do. They stared into the fire and let it speak for them. But that night the dream started and gave them no choice. Jack dreamed he lay on a narrow metal table that smelled like coins and disinfectant. Lights burned down from nowhere. Tall figures, thin, gray, with large black eyes that reflected the room, moved around him in a calm, practiced way. A long silver instrument touched his shoulder, and cold spread through him like dye in water. A voice arrived in his head, not through his ears. "Do not be afraid." Jim dreamed the same room, the same table, pressure at his chest, a weight on his legs, the sense that his body had been switched off. He tried to thrash and could not make a finger move. He felt something press against his ribs, then a counting in his mind that wasn't in his own voice. Charlie dreamed a needle entering his arm, first a sting, then a deep cold that made his teeth ache. Chuck dreamed of a curved corridor, walls like brushed metal, leading to a larger chamber with more tables and more people lying still, eyes open but seeing nothing. The beings moved among them without hurry, their long hands gliding over skin as if they were reading by touch. For weeks, they said nothing. Then small details slipped into conversation at the edges, one man describing a smell he could not place, another mentioning a pressure behind his eyes when he tried to sleep. They compared notes and discovered the thing none of them wanted. Their nightmares matched in shape and sequence. Different angles of the same room, the same hands, the same voice. They agreed, silently and stubbornly, not to let the story run their lives. They went back to work. They married, moved, made payments, tried to forget. In 1984, Jim's old head injury began to complicate his life. Seizures. One afternoon during an episode, he shouted about the light and the long-fingered figures, words torn out of him before he knew he was speaking. A doctor, practical, not mystical, suggested hypnosis to see whether the stress around whatever happened in the woods was feeding the seizures. Jim agreed. He did not want to, but he wanted answers more. Under hypnosis, the memories came in a cold rush, the canoe, the descending light, the sudden absence, the room, the needle, the voice that did not come through ears. When the session ended, he was shaking and quiet. The others, hearing what he had remembered, agreed to try. Each man went in alone, at different times, without comparing notes. Each came out describing the same curved walls, the same metal smell, the same table with an edge that bit into the back, the same instruments gleaming like dental tools. One remembered a sharp tapping at his knee that made his leg kick. Another remembered a light pressed to the inside of his elbow until the skin tingled. Investigators collected their statements. A researcher arranged polygraph tests. The results suggested each man believed what he was telling. Skeptics pushed back with reasons that made sense on paper. Hypnosis can create stories the brain then accepts. Close friends can influence each other without realizing it. Long nights in deep woods can bend memory. The men listened. They did not argue science with scientists. They only repeated the few things they refused to doubt. The light over the trees, the missing hours, the nightmares that began that same night and returned for years. The case found an audience. A book would be written later. Interviews aired. Sketches were drawn from memory. Bright rooms, tall figures, a craft with no seams. To some, the Allagash Abductions became a cautionary tale about suggestion and recall. To others, it became one of the clearest multiple witness encounters on record. The four men were not looking for attention when it began, and attention never made their private hours easier. They still woke at night, sometimes with the same copper taste in their mouths, sometimes with the sense that they had been looked at by something that did not blink. What happened on Eagle Lake? A shared hallucination, born from fatigue and fear. A story patched together under hypnosis and soldered into certainty by belief? Or an encounter with something that moved with intent, watched them with interest, and took from them the simple comfort of a complete memory? The forest gives no answer. The water remembers nothing in words. The men returned to their lives and carried the question like a scar under a shirt. Today, the Allagash looks the same. On a clear night, you can paddle out until the shore is only a darker line, and the sky is the only thing. Cold seeps through your jacket. The smell of resin and wet rock climbs off the water. If you kill your light, the stars thicken until there are more than you think the sky can hold. Every ripple sounds loud. If a pale sphere rose over the tree line and paused as if it had seen you, you would understand how 4 men could be turned into witnesses against their will. You would understand how a person can be terrified without noise. The story has edges that invite argument and a center that does not budge. 4 men saw a light. They signaled. It came down. They paddled. Time fell away. Afterward, they dreamed the same dream. Decades later, questioned apart, they still described the same room, the same touch, the same voice that was not a voice. Belief and doubt can sit side by side in the same mind. The men learned to live that way, to accept that an ordinary night in the woods can be broken by something that does not behave the way ordinary things do. If you camp there now and wake before dawn, the water will be flat and black, and the first birds will start their thin songs. You will boil coffee and watch steam drift into the cold. You will look up, because everybody looks up there. You will see nothing but stars, or you will see a light that moves when it shouldn't, that stops when it should drift, that brightens the trees in a white wash like breath on glass. You will feel your body go very still. You will think of your watch. You will measure the seconds in your head, and without deciding to, you will listen for a voice that does not come through your ears. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.